weekdays.com. We're going to start to put a bow tie on our Jim Brown conversation. We're going to do our top 5 running backs of all time, get some viewer comments, but we have to start here. What do you guys think the Browns should do for the upcoming season, if anything at all, to honor Jim Brown?
You got an idea, Bull?
Yeah, I think they should do multiple things. There should be a 32 on the helmet, in my opinion, and 32 in the middle of the field.
That's what I think, too.
The Browns, in my opinion, in the Jimmy Haslam era, have not done a very good job honoring the greats of the franchise.
Well, they bring them back. They bring guys
sometimes,
back.
Sometimes, but I've talked to some players off the field. I'm not naming any names, obviously.
Right.
And there's been, and I've said this to one member of the Browns front office. The guys have said, you don't always feel welcome.
Yeah.
And I think they've gotten better the last couple of years, but they better do this right. Like, how many times has Washington been crushed for how they screwed up Sean Taylor things?
I know.
This has got to be done right. On the helmet, on the field. And the Browns this year need to play with the heart of Jim Brown because they haven't done that in a long time. Yeah. And they need to play with the toughness and the fight and the heart that Jim Brown had. And putting it at 32 right in the middle of the field and on the helmets, that would say something.
I want the helmet at midfield with the 32.
Yeah.
I don't know if the league's going to allow that. I think there is a rule that it either has to be a logo or the shield.
That sucks.
If that's the case, I would change the logo.
Yeah, change the logo. Screw it.
I mean, I would literally change the logo to 32. Yes. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and I don't know that it'll be a rallying cry for the team because the team, although they knew him, I met most, if not all, of the players had met him. They don't really, unless they're real students of the game, they probably don't understand the impact he had. You honor him by dedicating the season to him, and you go kick the league's ass.
That's it. Yeah.
Every single week. You play like it's your last down, your last game, and you bring back to this city the honor it had when Jim led the way. That's how you honor him.
Yeah.
You go play your ass off and you win. Simple.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. There should be a 32 on all the helmets. There should be a 32 on a helmet on the middle of the field. Stop trying to get cute with elf logos and new dog logos.
Yeah.
Just win.
Yeah.
Just win.
That's right.
And everything will take care of itself. What about you, Boogie? How do players look at that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say I would like to take a delayed game, maybe every home game.
Oh, wow.
And then have the PA guy announce, like, we're taking this for Jim Brown to get the crowd, showing their appreciation.
Wow.
That's something that I
So
feel,
their first offensive play, just have everybody stand around and maybe play a video on the Jumbotron.
Every home
They're
game.
not going to do it every home game.
Yeah. They probably won't, but
because your first series, you're first and 15 to start.
But also the other team, to honor him, can decline that penalty.
Oh, that's interesting.
They don't have to accept the penalty.
That's
really
interesting.
He is right. They don't have to accept the delay of game.
They can go out with 10 players maybe.
That's really
in the
interesting.
huddle,
I like that idea. 10
that
players.
That incorporates the other team showing respect for what he's just done for the game in general, not just the
No, I
Cleveland
like
Browns.
that.
So,
that's really smart.
you get what I'm saying? Also bring his wife out maybe for the first home game.
Right.
And just give her a moment of silence. Hopefully she's done grieving at the time.
Right.
So just little things like that alongside with the logos and the patches. Just something that would be more memorable.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
I mean, he was the first guy. He paved the way not only with his civil rights work for young black men in America to, and Leroy talked about what he had to deal with, like having to stay in a different hotel. Like, we know those things happened, but it's still, every time you hear it, it's hard to believe, like, that these things happened. But, like, so he paved the way and he opened doors for so many people. But he also opened the doors in a way for stardom in football. Because to that point, baseball and horse racing and boxing were all bigger than football.
By far.
Right? And Jim Brown, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me it feels like Jim Brown was the first superstar in football.
Well, if you think about it, the year before the Browns, or the Super Bowl era began, the Browns won the World Championship, the NFL Championship.
Right.
And it really was coming into its own. He led the way into the Super Bowl era.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of credence to that theory that he was the runway to today's NFL.
Right.
And I can't think off the top of my head. If I say this, I may regret it. But to me, it seems like he was really one of the first stars to go from athletics to acting and do it very, very well at a high level.
I can't think of
I
a
mean,
lot of others.
maybe I wasn't alive. I just in my mind as I'm trying to think of guys that have done it. Many did it after. In fact, the guy that I think he's most compared to is O.J. Simpson.
Right.
And O.J. Simpson famously transitioned into acting and had a pretty damn good career as an actor too.
Yeah.
Because usually they'll just have guys do small appearances. You'll be like, oh, I seen
Cameo.
yourself.
Yeah, cameo.
Yeah,
I
as
seen,
himself.
I seen so and so. Oh, did you see him in the movie?
Right,
But to transition and be a star in stars in multiple films is amazing.
It is. It really is. And it's a testament to, you said earlier, it's a testament to the kind of resolve that he had to be able to leave one arena at the top and immediately go seamlessly into another and have major impact.
It is so tough, especially in this field that takes up a lot of your time. You have to have a special level of dedication and discipline as an athlete to transition to another field where me being in that field now, how hard those actors work and study those lines, it's a whole nother dedication, discipline. So to be amazing at both of them, like I said, is just a testament to how special he was.
Well, and to Bull's point earlier, he was just the kind of person that his drive and will to be great, not will to make it.
Right.
You know, I remember one of the things we talked about in the interview, because we sat down for well over an hour. One of the things that we talked about was he said, if I decided I was going to do something, I wasn't just going to be there.
Right.
I wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
No matter what it was, whether it was lacrosse. He's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
I asked him if he wanted to be a professional baseball player, could he have been a professional baseball player without sounding, boastful? He was like, yeah, I could have if that's what I chose to do.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
I do too.
Basketball probably too. I believe his senior year in high school he averaged over 30 points a game.
He was a freak on the basketball court.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just
and track and field too. He won the 100. He won the long jump. He
Ridiculous.
won the high jump. He did whatever he did. He won. And I just think he was one of those rare people. We all know them. That no matter what they try, they're not just good or accomplished. They're great.
Yeah.
52 films.
Yeah, wow, I didn't realize it was that
52
many.
films. That
is incredible.
That
and
is
I counted
incredible.
4 different times to make sure that number was right, and it was 52. That's a lot of damn films.
Are you sure you want to bite off this next topic?
Yeah, I spent about an hour and a half researching this yesterday. I did.
Because you know that it's one of those things, you can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can never please all of them all of the time.
Yeah, it's like, well, you weren't here last week. So we did some hypothetical trades.
Yeah.
For Jared Allen, just play around with the trade machine. This was Friday.
Right.
I think it was Friday, right? But was it Friday?
Yeah, it was Friday.
And I have people saying it's way too much, way too little.
Right.
This team would never do it. That team would never do it. You're not going to please everybody. It's impossible in this industry. But I do like when, at least in those situations, and I think we're going to get to that same point here.
This is gutsy.
When you have people on both sides saying that's not nearly enough for a trade, you're probably in the right spot then for a trade.
Yes.
Now, this is a little different, and I'm going to argue a certain way for certain players, and you may disagree because you value something a little more than I do. But before we get to this, I think there's a clear top 4. And I think there's a tier with 5 through 7 that could be rearranged.
Okay.
So, with what we're talking about is ranking the 5 best running backs of all time.
Yeah,
we're going to do it.
This is tough.
We're going to do it. And this was not easy. Not easy at all. And we're going to do it thanks to Calling Companies Championship, July 12th through the 16th at Firestone Country Club. Check them out. More information at callinggolf.com. So
who's your number 5?
By the way, Icky Woods better be in that top 5, or we're going to be fighting.
He made the honorable mention. We'll put it that way.
It better be Leroy at number 5.
Leroy also an honorable mention. Real quick with Leroy, you know that play we watched with Jim Brown and Boogie was like, that's why running backs start 7 yards back so they get momentum?
Yeah.
That was the Leroy special for 2.5 yards.
Yes, it
was.
was.
That was Leroy's bread and butter.
Yeah, that was it.
2.5 yards into the hole, and then
2 yards.
Jim Brown takes it 75 yards for a touchdown.
2 yards in a cloud of dust.
One of Boogie's, Boogie will tell you one of Leroy's favorite quotes. He said, if you need 3 yards, I'm your guy. If you need 8 yards, I'm not your guy.
No, I think the quote was, if you need 1 yard, I'll get you 3. If you need 8 yards, I'll get you 3.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
He was
The man knows what he is.
Yeah,
and what he
yeah.
isn't.
No,
You got-
and he
you
was.
gotta-
He
you gotta
truly
respect
was.
it.
He
You
was the
gotta respect
3-yard
it.
Yeah.
guy, but
And
he was.
did kind of. He
consistent.
ran in a similar style. Now, it wasn't Jim Brown, but similar stylistic runner
He
to
did.
Jim Brown.
He did.
Physical,
Yeah.
initiated the contact, and you could definitely see there.
He left his
relationship
mark
paid
on
off
defenses.
the field, yeah.
Not afraid
We
to hit
call
people.
that 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
what
good
we
old
call it.
days. Okay, who's number 5?
All right. So 5 and 6 came down to 2 people, in my opinion. And I gave the edge to Adrian Peterson over Eric Dickerson for the longevity nod. The slight longevity. These two, if you wanted to tell me that Eric Dickerson should be 5 and Peterson 6, fine. I'm not going to throw a fit. I gave him
at
the
5?
longevity nod. He won an MVP, 4-time first-team All-Pro. He's second on the all-time single-season rushing list behind Dickerson, who still holds that record. But he gets the nod because he's been a elite back for 9 years, a very good back for 12 years, and a serviceable running back for 14 years.
Yeah, he
going
stuck
on
around a
15.
lot at the
So
end.
he gets the slight longevity nod over
All
Eric
right.
Dickerson
Okay.
at number 5.
Dickerson had one of the all-time great seasons ever on a bad team.
Bad team.
Okay,
Bad Reds
so
team.
yeah, Dickerson is on the cutting room floor. Who's number 4?
So like I said, these next 4, I think it's 1 through 4 in some order. You could
Okay.
argue different things. But with number 4, oh, with Emmitt Smith. I know he's the all-time rushing yards leader, all-time touchdowns leader. He has 3 Super Bowls, and he's the most reliable back ever. But I don't think at the end of the
Better
day
than AP?
he was as good at his peak as the 3 guys ahead of him on this list.
I'm okay with him at 4. I know some people have him 1.
I do not have him 1.
No, I know some
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
The reason I'm okay with having him at 4
Yeah.
is because he had a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He had Hall of Famers, I believe, on the offensive line.
2, I think.
2.
Great tight end.
And a great tight end, not a
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, but a great
Yeah.
tight end. I mean, he
they were
played.
just a sensational team.
They had it all.
Yeah.
They had it all. Now, not to take anything away from him, he was a great player. But had he played on the 2010 Browns from 2020? Is he Emmitt Smith? Does he elevate the Browns? Probably a little.
Yeah.
But he's not.
He doesn't have the same impact because, like we said, when you're playing around a team with other great players, everything is made easier for you. So that's why I was
true.
kind of shocked he was
Because-
at that spot.
In Jim Brown's case, everything was geared to stop him and only him.
That's right.
If in the 90s and you're playing Dallas and you're going to stop Emmitt Smith, you could take Emmitt Smith out of the game. There were teams that game planned him right out of the game, and they were still able to beat you with Irvin, Troy throwing the ball, and they could beat you other ways.
Yeah.
The Browns beat you one way.
Do you think
Give
he
it
has
to 32?
that cowboy effect because he played for America's team? That's why
Probably.
he's
Yeah, I think that
got
has
the
something to do with it too.
notoriety.
We saw all
Yeah.
of his games because
I
they
mean,
were
he
always
was great.
in
I mean, he
Yeah, not to take
Yeah, I'm not
nothing
going to
away,
say he's
but-
not
belongs
great.
there.
He deserves to be in the top 5.
but I wouldn't put him
don't
one.
think so. I think he's appropriately slotted at number 4.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, he is the all-time NFL leader in rushing yards
is.
and touchdowns. So say what you want, that is
You're right.
an accomplishment in its own. But I don't think his peak was as high as the next 3.
Okay.
By the way, I would not have had Adrian Peterson in my top 5.
Would you have Dickerson in that
Why,
spot?
why
no,
not?
No.
Oh, okay. So then you're going to have somebody. Who then do you have in your top 5 that? Well, you don't know yet. You don't know yet.
I'll tell you at the end.
Yeah,
I'll tell
save
you.
it at the end. All right, 3 through 1 here. Don't take it, Steve. Might be the hardest decision I've ever had to do.
It's really tough.
This is literally almost impossible.
That's why I asked you. Are you sure you want to do
Yeah,
this?
no, I am, and I spent a lot of time on this. I really, and people sometimes the top 5s when they're silly, we throw them together, we have some fun. When it comes to this stuff, like I'm not gonna put my name on it unless I've fully researched.
That's
and
fair.
Feel confident. Now, granted, I didn't see any of these 3 guys playing live. Like Barry Sanders, who's coming up on this list at some point, I was 4 when he retired. So
Yeah.
like, I
Well,
don't
Jay and I
remember.
saw Barry Sanders.
I saw Barry
and Walter
Sanders
Payton.
his entire career.
So you guys
he
can
was
chime
phenomenal.
in. This is going off highlights, stats, research, everything. And at 3 is the aforementioned Barry Sanders.
Okay.
Who might be the single most talented player ever. He was untackleable. And his numbers, just flat out absurd. 6 All-Pros. He won an MVP, but he didn't have the playoff success.
And remember,
I know
the playoff success
you're
cannot be
gonna
held
say he's
against
irrelevant,
him.
but
No,
He played-
in
he
fact, he is the antithesis of Emmitt Smith. If you swapped
Yes. Oh
Emmitt
my
Smith
God.
and Barry Sanders,
Oh my God!
Yes.
you had 5 Super Bowls.
yes.
Because I do think Barry Sanders is more talented than
Way
Emmitt
more
Smith.
talented to
and
me.
he had nobody around him.
Nobody.
They were
never had
Browns
a quarterback.
Bad.
They had one good wide receiver there, Herman Moore.
Herman Moore was
really
there
good, but they had no quarterback. They had
nobody
no
else.
defense. They had nothing.
They were terrible. They were the Browns from 2010 to 2020.
He was the entire team.
That's it.
He was the entire team, and you still couldn't stop him.
He has 6 All-Pros. He won an MVP. His numbers are absurd. His yards per carry, a little lower than you might actually remember.
He had a short career, too.
Well, and that's why. And Jim
He
Brown had a
retired.
short career,
He
too.
walked away just like Jim
He
did.
walked away,
Yep.
and that's, I think, to me, that was the differentiating factor between him and Walter Payton.
Right.
And we'll get to Walter
Okay,
Payton.
so yeah, your top
at
3
one
are
of the
my
top
top
2
3.
in a sec, but Payton had had the longevity nod.
Right.
Barry Sanders, unbelievable in his own right. You look through, he had a 2,000-yard season in 1997 with 11 touchdowns. He led the league with 16 touchdowns in 91, led the league in rushing 4 separate times. He was unbelievable. But his yards per carry, for a guy who was as dynamic and as many big plays as he did, was a lot lower. It was only 4.4 than I thought, which I guess plays to the fact his line was terrible.
And
so he was such a hit or miss.
Barry had an interesting distinction. He was sometimes a victim of his own skill set.
Yeah.
He has the most negative yard carries in NFL history.
Yeah.
Boomer bust. And I don't mean that in a bad
And
way.
it's not
he
even
was
boomer
bust.
and I understand where you're going with that, but Barry, he told me once in an interview, because I brought that stat up. I said, that's kind of it's a weird distinction to have. And he said, every time I got the ball, I felt like I could run for a touchdown. Even when I was pinned in, even when there was no hole, even when there was no light, I felt like I could get out of it and run for a touchdown. So he did reverse course a lot. I will say this.
His yards per attempt were an even 5.0 according to Pro Football Reference, Mike.
I thought it was higher than 4.42. I don't know where you got that number from.
Oh, I was sorry. It is 5.0. 4.3 was his last season in 90.
Because there's only 3. There's only, I think, there's only a handful
He's
of
one
guys
of 4
that
guys
are over
that
5.
average over 5
4
yards
guys.
for his career. That's mine.
I will say this, though, and it's hard to say because he didn't have the team success, but if you just go on highlight films alone, Barry Sanders is the best I've ever seen.
To me, he's number 1. I agree. I would take him as the best back ever.
Listen, as you look at the highlights and you just watch what's a running back supposed to be and do, Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
He's the guy that you put into the time capsule, and if you're telling someone about football 100 years from now and what a running back is supposed to be and do, I show them Barry Sanders.
Nobody in the history of football had more jaw-dropping plays.
No one.
Nobody.
Yep.
Jerry Rice, no position.
What was his last year?
Barry Sanders?
Yeah.
He carried the ball. I mean, he was phenomenal. Carried the ball 343 times for 1,491 yards. He only had 4 touchdowns.
But what season was that?
98.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was very much like
he was 30 years old.
like Jim Brown. He played 9 seasons.
Yeah.
Just like Jim Brown. He had 1,400 yards in 16 games, where Jim had 1,500 yards in 14 games.
Yeah.
I remember when it was my first year in Tampa, and before they played, because they used to be in the old NFC Central, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I was a baby.
Yeah,
And
the NFC Central.
Yep.
And they would talk about. I would interview the defense about. So what's it like getting ready to play Barry Sanders? And they all said he's our nightmare. He is our worst nightmare. And remember, they had John Lynch, they had Warren Sapp, they had Derek Brooks, they had a defense. And them trying to tackle this guy was literally like
one mistake. If you missed one tackle,
you're done.
That's it.
Yeah, you didn't get a second chance.
I remember as in those years, it was like, because in those days you weren't, you couldn't see all the football games like you can now. So when the Lions, now the Lions are getting good again. But for many years, it's boring to see the Lions on Thanksgiving. But when Barry Sanders was on the Lions, that was like one of the highlights of the football season. Because growing up in New York, I'm sure here too.
That was your time to see him in the primetime window.
Play that much.
That was it. You ate turkey and you watched Barry Sanders on Thanksgiving, and that was probably the only time you were going to see him all year.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay,
choose Walter Payton.
Walter Payton and Jim Brown are 1 and 2, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to give you the case for each, and then I'll tell you who I sided with at number 1. Walter Payton, the only running back in NFL history to rush for 1,200 yards 10 times. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
In 10 separate seasons, Walter Payton rushed for 1,200 yards. That is stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid. Third all-time
now,
in
had
scrimmage
Jim,
yards.
now, I know this is a hypothetical, but had Jim come back, he ran for 1,500 in 14 games. He would have gone over 1,000 yards again.
Right.
Totally fair. Yeah, and obviously these are their own eras in the 60s versus the 80s. Walter Payton had the rushing record when he retired. He also had the elusive MVP for a running back. Jim Brown, on the other hand, short career, but arguably the most dominant during his era. Led the league in rushing in 8 of his 9 years. He was an All-Pro in 9 seasons, 8 first team, 1 second team. He's the only non-quarterback, to ever win 3 MVPs.
Still, to this day.
To this day,
yeah.
The only non-MVP. So I weighed a little bit of longevity with Peyton over the pure dominance of Jim Brown, and this is not because of what happened over the weekend, but I came to the conclusion that the most dominant running back ever was Jim Brown. I couldn't get over the fact that I understand different eras, 60s. As Leroy said, he weighed more than half his linemen. But 3 MVPs, only non-quarterback to ever do that, and he was the best of the best at his position all 9 years he played. He walked away before he was done, and I know you can say the same thing about Barry Sanders, but at the end of the day, I went Jim Brown at 1, Peyton 2, Sanders 3, Emmitt Smith 4, and Adrian Peterson 5.
See, I would have OJ ahead of both Emmitt and Peterson.
Oh, really? You'd have him that high?
I would.
I would say you could, because when you said Dickerson, I would say you could put OJ in the top
Dickerson's right
5.
there. I'll tell you a guy who gets left out all the time of these debates, but shouldn't be.
Bo Jackson?
Well, Bo Jackson didn't do it long enough, although he would have been. Marshall Faulk.
Faulk is in that category, right there.
I feel like he gets lost.
As dual-purpose backs went.
My only beef with Peterson, and obviously Peterson's top 10 and arguably a top 5 back of all time. My only beef with Peterson is for his era, he was kind of a one-dimensional back.
Yeah.
You know,
quick question though. In his era, dual-dimensional backs weren't as big of a thing as they are now, though.
That's true,
well,
but they were
running backs weren't asked to.
But they were starting to. You were starting to see guys in
Thurman
his era.
Thomas was a dual-purpose
He was,
back.
yes.
There were a lot of backs that played
Yeah.
in that era, but yeah, to your point, it wasn't like now every team has they want a
Marshall
dual-purpose
Falk
back.
was the two.
Marshall Falk
But
was
he was
like
an outlier at the time.
He was kind of the OG, really.
Yeah.
That really did both very, very well.
Edgerrin James did both.
Edgerrin James is another one.
Gotcha.
There's so many great backs. Any of those guys you can argue. I've always personally felt
Are you
Emmitt
okay
Smith
with
is
Jim
a little
at 1?
overrated. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Jim Brown, Peyton, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders, you could put those 3 in any order.
Yeah.
I think they're 1, A, B, and C. If I had to choose, I would put Barry 1, Jim Brown 2, and Peyton 3.
Did you watch Peyton Bowl?
I did.
So
Yeah.
you did. Okay, you had the eye
I mean,
test.
what was his rookie year? I can't
Walter
remember
Payton,
now.
give me 1 sec.
I think Walter Payton was the purest runner of all of the running backs. In
75.
the open field, Eric Metcalf was another guy that
Yeah.
looked like a gazelle in the open field.
Yeah.
Walter Payton ran beautifully.
Yeah, he was incredible.
His form, like Jim was a tank. He was a tank.
Right.
He was a bruiser.
Yeah.
And OJ was a little like that, but OJ also had world-class speed.
Yeah.
At that time. But I just thought that Walter Payton, just in terms of his gait and his running style,
So
I can
fun to
so
watch.
easily see him high-stepping with
Yeah.
his legs, but just in perfect form.
Right.
He was elusive.
Amazing.
He was pretty to watch.
He was. And I was only 4 years old when Walter Payton was a rookie in the NFL, so obviously I don't remember the early portion of his career.
Yeah.
But when the Bears won the Super Bowl with him, I mean, he was their entire offense.
I thought it was a disgrace that they let Refrigerator score a touchdown and not Walter Payton.
He was angry about that.
And he should be. They scored 55 points.
Yeah, I know. That was crazy.
And
Wait,
you're
he
not
didn't
gonna,
score in that game?
No, he put William the Refrigerator Perry, who was their gimmick back.
Yeah.
So you probably don't remember,
he's
but
huge, yeah.
he was massive, and he was a defensive tackle, and they used him in a gimmick offense at the goal line. And his nickname was the Refrigerator. They couldn't stop him, but when it was obvious that the game was well in hand, it was a blowout. On 3rd and goal, they took Walter Payton out of the game and put the Refrigerator in the game, and Fridge scored the touchdown. And Ditka, to this day, there are people in Chicago that have never forgiven him for that.
I did not realize that Peyton did not score in that championship
And he was
game.
very angry about it.
And he should have been.
And
he was a calm, he was a soft-spoken guy, never controversial, but he held that as you know.
I know a lot when they did the 30 for 30 on the Bears, on that team, a lot of the other players talked about that Peyton was pissed about that. And Jim McMahon, he had that one good year. That was his only good year, really. That was basically it. But and they had who was their great wide receiver? Willie Gault.
Willie Gault.
Yeah, that's the greatest team I've ever seen.
It was the most dominant in my lifetime, even more so than the Ravens when they had that great defense.
Yeah, obviously the Giants
gave up
would
9
help.
points a game.
Yeah.
And their offense was electric. The only thing that stood between them and a perfect season was the Miami Dolphins on a Monday night.
Right.
And it was really billed as, if any, this can the Dolphins
with Marino
keep someone else from having a perfect season, because they went 15-1 and then won the Super Bowl.
And they just, in the playoffs, they
blew
killed
everybody away.
Everybody.
It was a
None of the games were
55-7 or something in the Super Bowl
against the Patriots.
They had the Super Bowl shuffle.
Yeah.
It was that 85 Bears team was
ridiculous.
Unlike anything I've ever seen.
Last Walter Payton stat before we do some internet Jim Brown memories, and we'll move on to the Guardians. How many passing touchdowns do you think Walter Payton threw in his career?
He did throw a couple. I think he did. I think they had a couple
8.
plays.
3?
Ooh, 8. I wouldn't have said that many.
3?
Bull nailed it.
8?
8.
I just guessed.
They used to do that little sprint out. They would pitch him the ball,
I'm
and he
definitely
would,
rocking with Bull tonight.
and it used to be wide open.
I'm taking the Tigers. I'm throwing
Let's
the
go
extra
Tigers. El Tigres.
Wow, he threw a number out there and just landed. Bull, you got it.
Barry Sanders never threw a passing touchdown, so now we have to, picking hairs in that debate.
Hey, there you go.
There's your.
What was his quarterback rating? What would his career quarterback rating be? 157.
Wasn't bad. Hold on. He threw 34. It was not good. He threw 34 passes in his career, completed 11. 8 of those 11 went for touchdowns. He also threw 6 interceptions.
You know what it speaks to? It speaks to how defenses played him. When he got the ball, all 11 came for him.
Right, sure.
And that left somebody wide open in the end zone.
Yeah.
You don't hold the level of competition that Jim Brown had to play against compared to Walter Payton against him in the.
I do a little bit, and that's why I think I put Barry Sanders ahead of him.
We're getting better. Our game was evolving. And things like that.
Compared to OJ?
Compared to Jim Brown.
Oh.
Compared to Walter
Jim
Payton.
is the. When you look at those guys and say which of these is not like the other, it's Jim because of the era he played in. All of these guys are modern era football backs.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard to distinguish between those three.
Yeah, it's
and even
tough.
the other guys that we're all mentioning here. I feel like we're forgetting. Like, what about the guys playing now? Who,
I had
they
my
got to do
top
it
5.
longer.
I thought I wanted these.
What's your top 5?
Just know what I had: AP, LT, Chris Johnson, Shady McCoy, and Sean Alexander were just 5 backs.
Yeah, you're young, and
With
that's okay. You're a young dude.
LaDainian Tomlinson, actually, we left him. LaDainian Tomlinson is in the conversation.
He was in the.
He's in the top 10 for
extended
sure.
longer honorable mention list.
Those other guys, of the last 20 years are in the conversation.
Look,
this is my list of
that's the guys that you
I've
saw,
seen.
that you remember, and all of those guys were electric
I
difference-making
just remember
guys.
that exciting that CJ2K season. Just
Oh,
the
my
whole.
And
God.
by the way, now he's got a long way to go, but I believe Nick Chubb, now again, you got to hold it against him that he doesn't catch passes in terms of the all-time list.
Sure.
But I believe he's 3rd all-time in yards per attempt, Nick Chubb.
He is.
It's gonna be
one
so
of the,
hard.
he's
He's up
one
there,
of 4
yeah.
that averages more than 5 yards.
Marion Motley is actually number 1 of all time, who played running back even before Jim Brown.
But was he number 60 or 61 or something? Like, don't you have to be in the 30s to even 20s to enter this conversation?
Yeah.
I feel bad for Nick Chubb just because in today's game it's a pass-happy league. It's going to be so tough for a modern running back to crack these top 5 lists going forward because everything is so pass-happy now.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they want to see points put up. They don't want to see a dominant running back. That's why the outliers of the Derrick Henrys and the Nick Chubbs are so highly praised because you see the running back list just getting depreciated.
If I'm Nick Chubb at this point, you're the, I think, top 3 runners of the football in the sport right now.
Yeah, sure.
From January to April, or just take it all the way to camp, August, July, I'm gonna catch 250 footballs a day.
Yeah.
I'm going to run routes. I'm going to work with guys that have been great pass-catching running backs in the past, and I'm gonna eliminate that as a criticism of my game.
Yeah, and I wonder. I mean, it's not like remember in that playoff game he did have some drops, but for the most part he hasn't had drops. They just don't throw it to him a lot. I wonder this year, even though Jerome Ford will be there, Jerome Ford is not. I would think. I know we're talking about they're going to throw a lot, and I agree with that. But I think Nick Chubb will have a higher percentage of plays on the field than he's ever had in his career this year.
I hope so.
And I think he'll get more passes this year. I wonder if he ends up.
hope so.
I wonder if he ends up with a career high in receiving yards for him, which is probably not that high.
No, it'd be interesting to see
Yeah.
if that happens.
Yeah.
We're going to get to our internet comments and internet memories. Jim Brown from our wonderful viewers and audience out there. And as always, whenever we ask the internet for responses, it's brought to us by our dear friends at PCC Airfoils. If you're looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits, well, PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Menor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up, plus full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. You can apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more. We got some text on Haymarket. We got some YouTube community comments. It's easiest to pull them in on Tagboard from Twitter, so we'll go with a couple tweets here. But this first one is from Michael and Tonse. Well, I was too young to get the privilege to watch him play the game of football. As a legendary human who was a Cleveland icon who helped unite people and build equality through athletics, he'll forever be remembered. The world lost a great man, and the city lost an icon. R.I.P. And we got two more here. This one I appreciated. Back in '96 when he boxed the aliens to help save the world, an iconic moment in the career of Jim Brown. How could y'all forget that? And this from the April. And she says, for me, Jim Brown, in addition to his greatness on the field, will always be remembered in one of the single funniest scenes in a movie ever.
Get you, sucker.
I don't know what movie that's from. I'm not going to lie.
I'm going to get you, sucker.
I'm going to get you, sucker. Wasn't it a parody? Was it a
it was like a
parody
spoof
film?
Yeah,
spoof.
Also, oh my God, I just forgot he was in the movie with Schwarzenegger. Oh God, The Running Man.
Was he?
The Running Man. Yes, look that up.
Well, I have to watch some Jim Brown movie. I don't know if I've ever seen him in a movie.
So remember The Running Man? It was like a game show.
Running Man. I didn't see it.
So for those who don't remember, Running Man was like in Schwarzenegger's heyday.
He was. You're correct.
Right? I just remembered it now because he said boxing, and I remember. So The Running Man, Schwarzenegger was in jail for who the hell knows what. It's like a dystopian society in the U.S. in the entire all of Earth. And Schwarzenegger, he's either going to get killed for being a criminal, or he can go on this game show where you could get killed, but if you survive, you're clear of all your criminal behavior. So Schwarzenegger goes on the show. By the way, the host of the show was Richard Dawson, who used to host Family Feud.
Yeah, Family Feud.
And the game's rigged, but in each event, you have to fight against one of the guys who try to kill the Running Man.
Right.
There are all these different characters, almost like wrestling. And the all-time champ was Jim Brown. And for most of the movie, he's in the high rollers room, hanging out with the mucky mucks. But then those guys keep getting killed. So eventually he goes down to fight against Schwarzenegger. It was pretty cool.
Wow, I like it.
I hadn't thought about that movie in a while, but he was great.
I haven't seen it, but the concept sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right, more internet
Mike.
comments?
Yeah.
No, those are the internet comments we got. We got so many that are coming in. It's hard to. Oh, we do have one super chat though. Anthony sent it to me. Give me 1 sec to pull it up. This is from. Where do you put it? Sorry. This is from Maurice Lucas. No relation to me. My birthday is your show's anniversary. I live in Phoenix, but I was born in Cleveland. My name is Herman Moore, and I went to Shaw High School. So thanks for watching, Maurice. We appreciate it.
Very
cool.
And
happy belated birthday. About 2 weeks out. So
West Coast love.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. Any more Jim Brown stuff? I feel like we spent an hour 40 on it.
We've covered it all.
I think we have.
Did.
Yeah.
Kudos to us. We did it.